In this video, I'll share my views on why we must all skip Maldives and why there are much better alternatives that deserve our money. Now, Maldives, no doubt, has beautiful landscapes, blue water, and nice resorts, but this beautiful landscape is controlled by a fundamentalist Islamist regime that feels threatened by even the slightest of non-Islamic symbolism or speech. And I'm not just making it up. Let's hear it from the horse's own mouth. This is Maldives High Commission website in the UK. Here it says clearly that any kind of religious idols of worship are prohibited in Maldives. Why, you ask? That's because their faith is so fragile that they must protect it by preventing any criticism or exposure to other faiths or ideologies. They're afraid that if their citizens are exposed to other philosophies, they may shun Islam. Again, I'm not just saying it, all of it is backed with tangible evidence. There was a philosophy graduate student in Maldives named Muhammad Nazim. In a public event, he had declared that in his view of his readings in philosophy, he could no longer agree with the tenets of Islam. So he publicly declared himself to be an atheist. He was beaten up by the public in the audience, and then he was taken to the jail, threatened with death penalty, and a lot of pressure was put on him by the government by sending two Islamic scholars to his house to supposedly clear his doubts about Islam. Then eventually, under mental duress and to save his own life, he had to apologize publicly and embrace Islam, quote unquote. And the government claimed that he had done so with complete free will. My foot. It's the same coercion tactics that Mughals used for conversions in India. When the brave children of Sikh gurus refused to bend, they were murdered by the Mughals. It's the same hatred that decapitated Hindu and Buddhist religious symbols all over India for centuries. Now let's come back to what all of this means for tourists like you and me, who are attracted to Maldives' natural beauty. Now, you may or may not carry any religious symbolism yourself, or it may not be an important part of your identity. You may be agnostic or atheist. But consider this. Do you want to enable and support a fundamentalist government who doesn't even accept you for who you are? It's not that they are bigots to only other religions. They are intolerant for any lack of belief as well. And there's a case of a 25-year-old air traffic controller in Maldives named Ismail Muhammad Didi, who was found hanging from the control tower of the international airport in the Maldives on Tuesday, July 13th, after he apparently killed himself to escape persecution for his rejection of Islam. There's an independent Maldivian newspaper called the Minivan News. This newspaper published two emails that Ismail sent to one of the international humanitarian organizations on June 23rd and 25th, in which he said that he's an atheist and required assistance for his asylum application. Turned out he had started receiving threat calls after he had foolishly admitted his stance on Islam to his work colleagues, and the news had spread like wildfires. End quote. In the email, he also said that a lot of close friends and girlfriends had been prohibited from seeing him by their parents. He had received a couple of anonymous phone calls threatening violence if he doesn't repent. And continuing in the email, he said that he's learning the hard way that there is no place for non-Muslim Maldivians in that society. This kind of fundamentalist, intolerant structure leads to completely unnecessary hassle and inconvenience for ordinary people. For instance, this is the US State Department website that outlines how 3 Indian nationals were harassed by the public and Maldivian police just because they found a little idol in their bags, took them to the jail, and then deported them. Imagine if India or the UK had deported a Muslim Maldivian for wearing an Islamic cap or a burqa, etc. Their beliefs and egos are so fragile that they feel threatened by something as innocent as yoga. Indian High Commission had organized a yoga camp on the International Day of Yoga. A group of Maldivian men vandalized the event, asked the authority to cancel the event, all because it wasn't Islamic. Enough. This also gives you some perspective on the hostilities that Maldivian ministers and president had displayed against India and its Hindu prime minister recently. So here's the final beat on this. Why would you ever want to give your hard-earned money to such fundamentalists who hate us? It's not like we don't have a choice. There are plenty of amazing island destinations across the world, Bali to Fiji to India's own Lakshadweep and Andaman. Bali is an interesting contrast for that matter. It's an Islamic country, but the Indonesian government has well preserved the ancient Hindu temples. The idols are prominently displayed in the streets and the corners in Bali, and Ramayana shows are a daily event. It's also just as beautiful and pristine, and in fact much cheaper than the Maldives. Government may have its own geopolitical reasons for coddling the Maldivian government in the face of Chinese hostility, but we, the common people, can vote too, with our pockets, with our money, and with our flight bookings. Just skip the Maldives and go to Bali.